After the preparation of financial statements of a school, the next step is to engage the auditor or an examiner of a school to examine or audit the financial statements and report thereon. Section 43 of the South African Schools Act requires that the financial statement of a public school must be audited by a person registered in terms of the Auditing Professions Act. This means that only a registered auditor who's registered with the Independent Regulatory Board for Auditors in South Africa can perform an audit of a school. The Act, however, goes further to say where the audit of a school financial statement is not practicable, the school can engage a person to examine the financial statement of a school who is qualified to be an accounting officer of a close corporation in terms of Section 60 of the Close Corporation Act. This is where the challenge is in terms of determining under what circumstances it is not practicable to actually do an audit of a public school. The South African Schools Act does not have specific guidelines around determining the instances in which it will not be practicable to perform an audit for a public school. Therefore, guidelines can be found on the circular that has been issued by the National Department of Basic Education that indicates that a school must appoint an auditor, and only in circumstances where it is not practicable and that has been approved by the member of the Executive Council in the province can they appoint an examiner to conduct the examination of a public school. That means any member that is appointed to become an examiner of the school financial statements would have to satisfy themselves that those requirements have been met and have seen approval from the member of the Executive Council that the school can opt to have an examination and not an audit. This is very important as the examination is only available where an audit is not practicable, which means the basic engagement that should be performed on the financial statement of a public school is actually an audit. The next step that relates to assurance that needs to be discussed is really around which engagements should be performed that qualify as examination. The South African Schools Act in terms of Section 43 does not specify which engagements qualify as an examination. From our standards that are available, the pronouncements from the IFAC and the IWSB, we know that some of the engagements that could meet those requirements include a review engagement. They also include an agreed upon procedures engagement. So the question we need to look at is which of those engagements would qualify as an examination. Firstly, when you look at a review engagement, it looks perfectly suited for this engagement as you are still performing audit procedures that are of an audit nature and you are able to get some level of assurance. Secondly, you have an agreed upon procedures. An agreed upon procedures, you are also performing procedures of an audit nature. However, these procedures are those that you have agreed either with the school and with the Department of Education. So the important part here is that you would have to have had procedures that are agreed with the two parties. We have our own reservations in terms of how to use agreed upon procedures for one reason. In many instances, the Provincial Department of Education looks for a conclusion or an opinion on the engagement that is being performed. As we are all aware, you cannot issue a conclusion or an opinion on agreed upon procedures as the outcome of such an engagement is factual findings based on the agreed upon procedures. Some members might ask, then what about a compilation engagement of financial statement in a school? First and foremost, a compilation engagement is an engagement where a practitioner uses their expertise to help the entity prepare its financial statements in terms of the set criteria of the school. Therefore, we see a compilation engagement as more an engagement to help the school with the preparation of the financial statement rather than an assurance engagement that could result in an opinion or a conclusion. Therefore, it's very important that members who are engaged to conduct a compilation are aware that that does not amount to an examination as defined in terms of the South African Schools Act. And to the extent that the school is aware, it is our responsibility to advise them about which engagements would meet the requirements for an examination.